Damn.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Arrow Sentinel's channel. Today we are going to go over the part 2 of the Brocock Commander HP Magnum as far as tuning goes, and hopefully it'll help you folks understand the process a little bit better and get you folks sorted to tuning your rifle to optimizing its full potential and squeezing every ounce of performance out of it. We're gonna briefly go over, this is more so with the Brocock Commander, but it will be similar to the Bantam, the Brocock Bantam, as well as the compatto series rifle from Brocock as well. But we're gonna basically go over, just to kind of give you folks an idea. These rifles will be will have their own tuning. They've already been done pretty much, but we're just gonna briefly discuss the differences when it comes to the scenarios you folks will face or expect. When it comes to, this is the Air Arms TX 200 MK3. It is, of course, hadn't seen much use as of late, busy with work and that sort of deal. But as far as tuning, this is a Springer type of rifle, and when it comes to tuning, you don't have that much tunability in Springers. The only thing you can basically do is simple modifications, and the tuning portion of it is a drop-in kit. This is the stock spring and hammer, piston, and some seals on here. That was the stock, but we'll go over it, and that's all basically you can do as far as tuning. And you can cut springs if you need. I don't recommend it, but there are options out there to get it to the level to its full potential. There are various companies out there that make some, like Vortex, some other, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember or recall the other UK based options you have for upgrade kits when it comes to tuning your Springer. And there are only a few Springers that have more so variety. These have been around for a good decade or so. This version of it, the MK3, is new, but it's basically the same rifle throughout the decade or so that it's been out. But anyway, it's one of the top best performers, accuracy and form and function, that sort of deal. So that's all you can do as far as tuning, basically. Okay, so that's just a brief description, and there will be a separate video when we come down to it. Now this rifle is a unregulated. We mentioned in the other video with regards to tuning that there are slight variances, and that's why we're showing you the different rifles here. And this one basically is an unregulated rifle, and it doesn't have the external adjustability and the other components that makes it more tunable or fine tune it in as far as adjustment goes. You can adjust the hammer spring tension, and again there are kits, I believe. This one is fairly new, but again we'll do that in a separate video. This is not the whole gist of this whole rifle in itself. It will be a separate video on its own as far as tuning. But again, when you don't have, when a rifle is unregulated, that curve that you're trying to follow, as mentioned in the other video, and tuning is slightly different, where you have to tune. You get like a bell shape, so up your field pressure all the way up, and basically because it's unregulated, you'll get that sort of like a bell form. And I'll show you folks in you know, our shot count consistency with how this one is tuned. And in short, that bell curve, there will be an area where your first several shots will be lower, and then it starts to kind of peak out where your majority of your shots will kind of be in a more of a linear type of graph, in a graph form anyway. It's more consistent, and then it'll drop off. So your beginning and your ending should be pretty much equal, and that way you get the best performance out of your rifle as far as balancing the hammer spring tension. You're not wasting a lot of that air when it hits the valve open. And because it doesn't have an externally adjustable power settings for the valve opening, you can only get so much out of this gun. But as far as this gun goes, it's fairly consistent shot counts. I mean, this gun out of the bat, when we tuned it, 60 FPE wasn't our best. It was best for power, but it wasn't our best consistency, where at that power level it would just drop off. Every shot was a drop off, and the variance was a little bit higher. I mean, it would be consistent at a certain level, but then our shot count depreciates so much, and the consistency in standard deviation was still pretty much okay, but the extreme spread was intolerable for us anyway. Some of you folks may accept the settings in a compromise for power versus accuracy, and that might be okay, but we want every performance in accuracy, which this rifle does, but at the same time we're optimizing every little thing that we can when it comes to shot count. Again, shot count isn't a requirement in tuning for accuracy. It is a luxury. So just want to put that out there. We'll go through more in detail when it comes to tuning this unregulated rifle, and we'll go over the graph and, you know, shot counts, where we're getting like right now this one is 17 feet per second extreme spread over a 55 shot count at 44 foot-pounds, and 4 feet standard deviation. What that means is every shot that I take after next shot, the first shot before that, I can tell that I will be within the range of 4 feet per second variance. That is excellent for a unregulated gun. Alright, so we'll put this guy away. I'll put it on the ground so it does not accidentally fall. Okay, and now we're gonna take you through what the whole specifics of this rifle, because some of you folks have been asking about the Brocock Commander, how it's tuned and that sort of deal. So when it comes to tuning your Brocock Commander, you're going to need, this one is already tuned, and we'll take you over the graphs as well, for shot counts and consistency and that sort of deal. I mean, we're getting like 4 feet per second deviation, and the only thing that makes that more accurate is sorting the pellet. This is unsorted, completely unsorted on the pellet. I mean, on the tin, it's right out of the tin. We pick it, we don't sort them, we don't size them, nothing. I mean, the only thing that can make that better, because the only thing that would make it better is the head sizes. There's slight variation in head sizes from factory when it comes to your ammunition. So that's the only thing that would make that slightly better. Not by much, but it would make it maybe a 2 or a 3 standard deviation. But that's, like, again, that's squeezing every ounce. This is already, it's at its top performance. But we'll take you through them, and we'll go over the graph later and shot counts and how we identified the shots. In short, if you're trying to tune this rifle, what you want to do, because of its external adjustability in this rifle, this makes this rifle great. I mean, awesome. Anything with a rifle, I mean, I wish every rifle comes with an actual external adjustment, power adjustment, where like this one does, which is, you know, functionality wise, it's awesome. It's not pellet selective. I can choose different weights, and I just have to log down and note down what my deviations between my POIs per pellet and what that pellet likes as far as velocity, and I can tune it according to this rifle. Power, it has 6 detents. What that means is it has 1 at its lowest, which is already 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5 detents, which gives it 6 different power levels. Yes, you heard that right. I know a little bit of math, but because the first detent is already set at power level 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gives it that 6 levels of power setting. And what this is basically just a how much the valve opens. So at full power, of course, it opens the door, if you will, a little bit at its max, versus the power settings would minimize the valve travel as far as the valve opening goes. So keep that in mind. We're going to go over that a little bit more. Now, when we're tuning this rifle, it may differ for you folks a little bit. Whereas when you're tuning this, we could optimize them for max power and still be accurate, close to 60 foot-pounds of energy. But we dumbed it down some because of you know, we wanted to maximize the different pellets that this gun likes. Now, when we say different pellets and what it likes, again, you like in the previous video, is that we mentioned how to select your pellets. Basically, taking a bunch of different pellets, different grains, different weights, different manufacturers, and see what your pellet likes at, and then start pushing them to different distances. And the further the distance, obviously the more accurate it should be at shorter distances, and you keep pushing it at furthest distance. But that's how you select the pellets. The tightest groups is what you want to keep, that you think is good for your pellet, and then you tune your rifle for that particular. So if you say, for example, you pick one pellet, this one is fully optimized for the JSB and King Heavies, the MK2 33.95 grain, and it's accurate at full FPE, which is about approximately 59 to 60 foot-pounds of energy with that pellet. But we sacrificed some of that power. Accuracy was not sacrificed because it was still accurate. So we dumbed it down a little bit, and when we dumb it down, meaning we go to lower FPE, we also gain shot counts per fill before dropping off the regulator. And what the value of that, of why we did that, is because now we can gain some of the pellets that hits or are able to shoot well, just not in higher velocities, because there's a certain range of velocities that a particular pellet like before it starts to destabilize as the velocities get higher. Higher power usually normally equates to higher velocity as far as pellet potentials or ammo potentials. So that's why we dumbed it down just a little. We still got enough FPE, but we got good shot consistency as well. I mean, we're getting like 3 out of 29 shots, 3 feet SD, standard deviation. That means again, shot to shot is only 3 feet per second difference between shot to shot. That is excellent. The lower the better, but that's the max that this can go out of 29 shot. And the extreme spread, which means those odd ones, it can only deviate about a maximum of 12, but between shot to shot is only 3, which is great. Obviously, the lower those numbers are, the better. So, and that was one instance, and another instance is we got out of 38 shots, 14 feet extreme spread, and standard deviation is 4 feet per second. Okay, so that's great out of 38 shots. And there was another one where we got them pretty much maxed to the best possible. It was like we were getting 17 or 16 extreme spread with 58, 55 foot-pounds of so yeah, 17 and 18 out of 55 shots, a shot string, and that's before falling off the reg, that sort of deal. And we got 14 18 feet per second extreme spread, and I believe we got them down to 16 or 17. I'd have to look at the latest data on this one, but 4 feet per second is standard deviation. That's the shot-to-shot consistency that you're looking at for when you tune. And that's why it's critical to have a chronograph. Now, this, as starting point, if you have not touched your rifle, depending, some of you folks report that your rifle are set at 160 bar, even at 0.177 or 0.22 caliber. This is a 0.25 caliber, and currently I am set at 150 bar. That means your gun is running hot, way too hot. And that's why some of you folks are reporting that, oh wow, why is it acting as if my regulator is faulty or whatnot? Well, that's because you have way too much pressure for what that caliber should be, and the hammer weight and hammer spring tension is not set accordingly. Now you either need to increase that, but again, your velocity is already throwing you off the grid anyway, and you shouldn't be that high for that particular grade unless you're shooting heavy grains. But that is up to your barrel, up to your pallet, up to your performance compromises or what you are looking for in your tuning. But if you're going for performance, you're going the wrong way. So what you need to do is, first you're going to empty your tank. And the only way to do that is in this Commander, there's this valve right here, but I don't normally, because it's harder to reach with the Allen screw. There's an Allen screw right here that you can reach, and it's a little bit annoying to get at. And basically, you just take this guy out, and then, you know what? And then get this is the Brocock Commander in 0.25. This is the HP Magnum. Okay, and it's a 5mm Allen to take this grip out. Put it out of the way. And you pull this out, put that out of the way. So here is a regulator, and don't mind this is an aftermarket, because we were having issues with the fill port. That's aftermarket. But what you want to be concerned of is empty your tank, and the way to do that is simply, because do not mess with your regulator, which is right here with a little so you can, if you forget this, just empty your tank completely before you make any sort of adjustment. Oops, sorry. Because you can damage your regulator. If you increase the regulator pressure to higher, you need to go counterclockwise with a small flathead screwdriver, okay, and just adjust very, very little at a time, and you'll see that pressure gauge, that regular pressure gauge creep slightly little, and then shoot it a few times for it to settle, and then fill it back up to maximum pressure again, and then go ahead about your tuning process. But if you forget, because if you decrease with the fill pressure with still on, you're going to damage your regulator, because now there's a certain volume in there that is contained in that regulator, and if you try and mash the screw down to minimize the pressure, you're gonna break your regulator. That's what happens. Okay, so empty the tank and then go clockwise in order to minimize this regulator. And you could go and experiment, and you just turn it one full turn. If you're at, let's say, 150, go one full turn, or just a little bit more over one full turn. That should get you around a starting point of 120. 130, depends, right? But depending on your caliber, for a .22, you might want to stay within the range of 120 is a good starting point. So for 177 and 22, maybe 125, and then check your consistency after that, and your shot count and your FPE, and then push it as you increase a little bit further. And what you want to do before you start, so keep that in mind. You take a adjustable wrench, because a socket won't go through, and you just, to release the pressure, and you just back this off some, the fill gauge, you back this off some until you start hearing the air escape, and then you just let it sit, let it all escape, and then back it off a little more each time, then you'll hear more pressure. As the pressure goes down, you back it off, and there's not enough pressure to push out. So little by little each time, you just until it's zero. And then from there'll still be pressure in the regulator, so you want to shoot several shots until that regulator is zero, and then you make your adjustments. Okay, so that's the way to adjust the regulator. Right clockwise is to decrease pressure, and counterclockwise is to increase pressure. And when you're doing this, you want to each time you want to start low and then push it further. So that's why I said start a good baseline to start is about 120, depending on your gauge. For us, we started about 130, because we know already that on this rifle we're gonna push it to a higher velocity. We know what a pellet velocity is like and what we can push it to. As you get familiar with various ballistics, you'll be able to kind of gauge where approximate the area of a good starting point. But if you're not as familiar, start low and then go higher each time and see how you can optimize it each way. And so with that said, now once you got it tuned down to your starting point, now you want to fill it back up. Make sure, of course, you tighten everything back up, and then fill it to max pressure, 250 for this particular rifle, 250 bar. So that's about 3,625 psi. So you want to fill that to max, and you want to set the power level to max as well. Okay, so and then from there, you're gonna need to have the same 5mm screw. This is the hammer spring tension here. Okay, counterclockwise is to decrease hammer compression. Okay, so as you're creating more space, you're loosening this bolt right here. Hopefully this can show you this other camera. And what that is now you're minimizing travel for that spring potential. Okay, so go left, and then you can kind of start off from there. And when you fire the gun, you'll have, and you'll see your velocity. That's why you need to have a chronograph in order to see what your rifle is doing. But before you touch this, okay, one thing you gotta know is before you touch this, do not cock your rifle. Okay, do not cock your rifle and then adjust your hammer spring tension. Okay, that's one do not. Okay, aside from do not decrease, do not counterclockwise the reg pressure with pressure. Okay, the second do not is do not, for this rifle, do not cock and lock your spring and hammer engaged and then adjust the hammer spring. Okay, it will be difficult, and then you can ruin the threads as well. So don't do that. And if you've done that to decock, you just hold the bolt, put a little bit of force, take it off safety, and pull the trigger, and then now you're decocked. Okay, put it back to safety. And obviously ours is in has pressure right now. Ours is already tuned, but basically now, before you adjust that hammer spring tension, you have to keep in mind that this is a little, this is a 2.5 millimeter grub screw that you need to go counterclockwise to loosen, because what that screw is doing is punching against that bolt. So if you tighten it and loosen your hammer spring tension without loosening this first, back it off a little, don't fight it, just back it off until it stops. Alright, now we got the hammer spring tension. So we got this from a different rifle, but we notice it helps a little bit because I noticed in the diagram that, so this is the hammer spring, and this is that guide, this spring guide, and what happens is this nut and that bolt we mentioned, that grub screw that's holding this bolt down, is right here. Okay, so all you want to do is back it off some to where it's loose. Okay, and then obviously if you back it out all the way, it's not going to come out because it's going to stop within this frame. Okay, so the only way to remove it completely is to take it out. So there is a notch here, okay, which is accessible by a 2.5 millimeter Allen key, and that's what this bolt is. You just want to back it off some until you've cleared the threads, because, and when you're putting it back and locking it back in place, just make sure you do a little snug fit, because you don't want to punch it down all the way either, because what happens is it's holding against the thread, and if you have this little grub screw nut, if you have this little grub screw nut punching against the threads, well, you're damaging the thread. Okay, so don't do that. Just and what this does is just help eliminate a little bit of movement in your spring. But as you're tuning, you don't have, just leave it loose while you tune and adjust for hammer spring tension. So keep that in mind. And then for us, what we did was, so and the hammer spring, you don't need to take it off, but if you want to take it off, right now the gun is cocked, and if you want to take it off, just stick your finger there and pull it out. And this notch right here, if you want to do a little bit of maintenance, we'll go over as far as maintenance later on in more detail, but for now, that's the gist of it, I guess, if you will. Okay, so now that's all that you're doing if you understood that process. And for those of you, when you're breaking it down, if you have the Commander, please comment or let me know in Facebook, because it might be another Brocock quality issue where ours didn't come. But on the diagram, and this is the Commander HP Magnum, in the diagram it shows some sort of a Durlin or a piece that's like this, that's supposed to minimize or dampen the sound or whatever that function is, but we don't have it in ours. It didn't come with ours. So we're just a little bit curious if your Commander, if you have them, came with it. So okay, so we got this from a different rifle, and we're just gonna sort it that way. And when you put it back, just keep in mind that this is lined up, and you just wanna hand tighten. Okay, you wanna hand tighten first, so that you know that it's now if you're putting this back and it doesn't go back in and you have to fight it, well, guess what, your bolt is cocked. You didn't pay attention and listen to me. Okay, so the only way to decock, like you showed me right now, I have it cocked. That's cocked, and now I won't be able to push and force this spring back. Now I gotta hold it in place because now the hammer is in its locked form, engaged form, and the only way to do that is, you know, take your finger or take this guy and, you know, pull the trigger, and now it's as if you push that, and that's in short what this spring does. Okay, so now you want to put it back, and you want to make sure it's nice and flush on that side we mentioned, and then you want to just wiggle it until you find that hole. Okay, and that's not how I got my kid. Anyway, so and now when you hand tighten it, that eliminates you from messing up or cross threading your rifle. And you want to take your 3mm Allen key, and now you want to lock it down. And this one you can go just a little bit more and just lock it in place, and just give it a good you don't have to force it, just you can see here what I'm doing, just a little bit of go like that, not much. Okay, just a little bit of go, and that's all there is to it. Now that you have this guy backed off now you can technically either just shoot off of your bag and leave this thing off, your main body off, or you can put it back. But you see ours, you see that notch there? Ours did not come with a notch. So we have to always remove this body armor in order to get to this screw, which is annoying. So what we did was, well, guess what? We marked where that screw should be. This is a little tip. You don't have to do it, but it will help speed up some, just in case you need to access this screw. And what we did was take a little bit of measurement of where that guide is. We marked it a little bit, and then we took a little bit of a blade and cut a triangle there enough, and then, you know, take a sharp blade or a knife and take a little triangle there. So now we have a little, you know, after we cut a triangle, now there's a groove, and we took our drill and we set the drill bit on there, on that groove, and we let it run and kind of round out that groove. And we went slightly bigger each time, and then we kind of put it back. We put it back again, and then we made sure that it's in its proper place, and then we kind of said, okay, so it sits it sits straight, we can access that bulb, yada yada yada, and you know, as long as you can access it, and you can't even tell. I'm not sure if that was the intended purpose, but our stock wasn't there. So, oh, and before I forget, if you folks could also remind me that I noticed when I was looking at this gun that there's pins here, and I'm missing a pin here and I'm missing a pin there. So hopefully this can show it. I can almost be certain that I don't know if I'm supposed to be missing a pin or that's the design factor in it, but I don't have a pin. I only have a pin here and a pin there that's holding this chassis in place, this trigger chassis. But if you folks could let me know as well when you folks break yours down, that would be great. Anyway, moving on. So now with that out of the way, and you have the different components that you should pay attention to and be cautious about and confirm. Now you can get down to the nitty-gritty. Put this guy back. Okay, so this is our process, and we've mentioned to you why we tuned it for where it's currently at now. Okay, and you don't want to crank this either too much. You just want to snug it. As long as it doesn't move and vibrate, you don't want to crack this ballistic polymer grip either. So you want to check it once you mess with it that it still engages. Okay, so, and it does. And now what you want to do is, now you can easily access this hammer spring tension. Remember, clockwise is to increase the hammer spring tension. Okay, now what you're looking for, let's say you back it off, okay, and you're at 100 and let's say you're at 120 or 125 as your starting reg pressure. Okay, ours was obviously it's a 120, it's a 0.25, so we were our starting point was 130, and when we started it, I mean, out of the box we were getting like 700, yeah, about 710, 720 in the 33 JSB MK2. So we know that this gun could do more, and we could push it further because the pellets started to drop, and we knew we needed to tune. So reg pressure we started at 130. For you might be 120 depending on your caliber. And so again, we put this at max. We backed off our grub screw that's holding down our spring tension, and now we have our chronograph in front of us, and we back this off to where it's flush or almost flush. You know, we back off that screw to where it's almost flush here, and we're still able to close this. Okay, and now you want to shoot. You'll find very quickly that when you shoot with that hammer spring tension, the way it's set and you backed it off all the way, you'll notice your velocity will drop significantly. And that's due to your max pressure being high and your reg pressure set at 120, and now you have minimal spring inertia to be able to push that hammer and punch that valve open. Okay, that's valve lock. And what you want to do is increase it each time to where you think that 120 bar should be getting you as far as pressure. Now you want to increase it some, little by little, and a quarter of a turn each time. So if you're backed off all the way, turn it 2 full turns at 120 bar, turn it 2 full turns, and then do a shot. Okay, check what your chronograph does, and then again do 2 more full turns and do a shot. After that, well, 1 turn. I guess it's safe. It's been a while since I backed it off all the way, but you'll know from your chronograph that, okay, I'm getting somewhere now. And then what you want to do is at a 22, you should be around 140, 135 reg is what I would recommend, depending on your pellet of choice. But you'll notice that your velocity will increase as you go to your hammer spring tension, and you got it too tight and too much if your velocities turn to not be so linear. Your shot to shot counts should be more leveled and then drop off as your fill pressure drops below your reg pressure. So if you were set to 120, your fill pressure drops below 120. Now you don't have enough pressure in your tank to maximize to the full reg pressure of 120 on your regulator. So your shot count depreciate or go down some. So what you want to do is, depending on where you set your reg pressure, you want to make sure your starting shots are pretty much consistent across the board until you fall off the regulator, and that's how you know you got optimum consistency. And what you're trying to look for is standard deviation, and you're trying to minimize the shot to shot standard deviation between shots. And like I said, ours, we achieved 4, we achieved 3. Okay, and that might be just a variation of pellet sorting that can only better that. Nothing else probably betters that. That's probably the best. Awesome if you get it to 1, which I've not seen a gun yet that gets it to 1. You could. I got 1 at a certain point, but again, it's pellet. It's more so realistic. Realistic 2 to 3 or 4. Lowest standard deviation. Okay, and the extreme spread, you want to get that to the single digits also if it's possible. Okay, but lower the better, and with a much bigger shot string, more shot string, like obviously that number is going to increase. But if you're doing 10 shots each time, that's going to be obviously in the single digits. So what you want to do is go to max pressure, shoot that shot string until you've noticed you've got it down. That's how you know when you've optimized full potential. And then, as well as, not only once you got that in a chronograph, and you can do this at home, of course, given that you have a IR type of lighting, depending on ours required IR lighting, which I made I'm an electronics technician, so I made a IR lamp for my chronograph, which was okay. And then I got tired of replacing the LEDs, because the LEDs wasn't good quality, the IR, which it's not very difficult to make good quality LEDs, but anyway, that's beside the point. So I bought the real LED lighting, IR lighting, so now we're able to shoot indoor. So you could do this indoor and then check for accuracy. Okay, now when you got accuracy and it's tight and you can push it far to 100 meters, 150 meters, then you know pretty much you're harmonically tuned for that barrel, for that pellet, for that velocity and power. And again, with chronograph on hand and pellet selection, what you want to do is increase each time, and you want to maximize. For a hunter like ourselves, we maximize power as far as accuracy. Shot consistency is a luxury for us because we hunt. So when we're plinking or target shooting or pellet testing, we need those shot counts because we don't want to be filling each time. So shot count is not a requirement for tuning, but it is butter, and if you got it, you know, it's adding butter to the cake or whatever you call it. But anyway, so back to the finer details again of tuning. We're gonna go over it now in succession as a summary. Okay, so you know the full, because I know I've jumped around some, and now you want to fully understand, okay, what did I get from all of this? Okay, so we'll go through it now and get you sorted. All right, I'll cut the video here and restart it, that way I know that it doesn't cut off on me on a time that I don't expect it.
People on YouTube, you call me a homo, but you think I stand by this? Well, that shit is a no-go. You're all coming one, because when